Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Lately, there's been an outbreak of popular unrest in many countries. There are protests, there are demonstrations. So, if you look closer to India, there is Pakistan next door to us. That we'll be talking about in some detail today. There is also Thailand. So, Thailand to the east, Pakistan to the west. Both are erupting, and it looks like there are some similarities because protests seem to be under a military kind of regime or military controlling their politics and even their democracy or whatever semblance of democracy they have. But there are other countries. There is trouble, for example, in Nigeria, and I have seen many questions from you, the viewers asking me to talk about Nigeria, and I am figuring it out. So, in the course of time, maybe later this week, we will talk about Thailand and Nigeria as well. So, why this is happening is difficult to say. Even in Israel now, crowds have come out outside Benjamin Netanyahu's house in protest. Maybe it's happening because of the COVID-induced stress in our economies and in our social lives. Or maybe it's happening because in many of these countries, we've done a count for you several times in the past, that this is a world by and large run by alpha male nationalists of the right. And there is some impatience coming up. As you can see in America, the polls are now showing the gap between Trump and Biden is rising. By the way, that doesn't mean that Trump has definitely lost, because pollsters have gone right the last time. So that health warning is always needed. So if we look at all that, which one is it that is most important for India? And that is Pakistan. Because I have joked for many years. It started when a Pakistani High Commissioner asked me, why was I asking for visa to go to Pakistan all the time? He said, why do you want to go to Pakistan all the time? That is when I used to be a reporter. And I said, that's because Pakistan politics is our internal affair in India. It was a facetious statement, but the fact is, whatever happens in that country, in fact, I should say that country to the west, is of great importance, significance to India. So, I will first of all count for you all that's happened in Pakistan. So, in the morning today or late night, thereabouts, there was a midnight knock. Literally, there was a midnight knock at the door of a hotel room where Maryam Nawaz, that is Nawaz Sharif's former Prime Minister, thrice over, Nawaz Sharif's daughter was staying along with her husband, Captain Safdar Awan. So, somebody knocked at the door rudely, and then they broke the door and they came in, they barged into the room. This was the rudest possible midnight knock, and then took away her husband, Captain Safdar Awan, under arrest. Now, people who came in to arrest him were not Karachi police. They were not Sindh police. Karachi is part of the Sindh province. They were not Sindh police. They were the Rangers. The Rangers is the Pakistani equivalent of the border security force. So, they sent a central force or a federal force, as they say in Pakistan, to arrest Captain Safdar Awan. Captain Safdar Awan, by the way, besides being Nawaz Sharif's son-in-law, Maryam Nawaz's husband, is also an ex-army officer. In fact, I first saw him as Nawaz Sharif's ADC when Nawaz Sharif was Prime Minister early on, the first time in Pakistan. And then he and Maryam got married very young, and he was arrested. And why was he arrested? His crime apparently is that at yesterday's protest in Karachi, massive protest organized by this group called PDM, Pakistani Democratic Movement, which is a conglomeration of 11 opposition parties. In fact, all 11 opposition parties that matter, because this includes the Bhutto Party, PPP, this includes the Nawaz Sharif Party, which is Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. This includes Pakhtun Tahaffuz Mahaz, PTM. This includes also JUI, that is Jamiyat, led by Maulana Fazlur Rahman. And PTM is headed by Mohsin Dawar. Young Mohsin Dawar was a charismatic character. So, these 11 parties have come together, and what is the agenda? Agenda 1 is to get Imran Khan out, and second, as they say, to restore genuine democracy, or to bring in. To restore democracy is a bad word, it's a bad choice on my part. So, they want to usher in real democracy in Pakistan. Restore we don't say, because Pakistan has never had real democracy, because even when you elect a government with 2/3 majority, the uncles up there in the general headquarters, they still control the fate of that government, and they decide who stays, who survives, who goes. And that's the reason in Pakistan no elected government completes its full term. Now, or no elected prime minister completes his full term. Now, see what has happened in Pakistan right now. Right now, Nawaz Sharif is in exile. He is actually in jail. He was given an 8-week parole or bail for his medical treatment. He's been not stupid enough to come back, because they would have locked him up again and treated him badly, and made sure that he died in jail. Other people have died in jail in Pakistan. Then Asif Zardari, who was also president of Pakistan, he's in exile because there are cases against him also. If he comes back, he'll spend the rest of his life in jail, and I don't know how long that will be. Nawaz Sharif's brother, who was managing Punjab and who's been quite loyal to him in the past, and again a kingpin of his party, he is now in jail. He was arrested last month on some corruption charges. Now, Pakistan has set up this organization called NAB, National Accountability Bureau, which arbitrarily has so much power, such enormous power, and you know who controls the levers of that power, that they can go and pick up anybody on any charges and lock them up as if forever. Na appeal, na vakil, na dalil, because the law is so weighted in their favor that it's very difficult for you to get justice. I know some people might get upset, but if you see the original draft of the Jan Lokpal bill that the Anna movement had drafted, it would have created a monster like this Pakistani NAB, and that's the reason some people like us opposed it and questioned it and faced the flak, because that was the popular thing at that time. But Pakistan has that, because any such institution will be controlled by somebody who's most powerful in that system. That in Pakistan is the army. It's not General Bajwa. It is not General Musharraf. It is not General Ziaul Haq. It is not General anybody. It is whoever is the chief of the army staff at that point of time, because this control and power in Pakistan is institutional. Don't make the mistake of personalizing this. Don't say this is a bad general, let him get out, then things will get better. In fact, when this general goes out, there will be another general. He'll do exactly the same thing. In fact, that general usually will be worse than the previous one. So, Qamar Ahmad Bajwa is a name. He is a general. It's like on a bus stand, bus number 77 comes, it goes away, another bus comes, that is also bus number 77. So, generals may come and generals may go in Pakistan, but the powers of the army remain the same. And any general who dares to question it does not last his full term, like Pakistan's prime ministers. And we saw that happening with General Jahangir Karamat in the past, who was a professional soldier. So, they control NAB also, and they use this NAB then to put down any opposition to the government that they have selected to be in power. So, Field Marshal Ayub had once promised Pakistan guided democracy. His legatees have now in Pakistan institutionalized that guided democracy, because first of all, it is the GHQ which decides who should be in power, then they decide how so and so in power should behave, and they also decide when to fire the so and so, to get rid of so and so, and they do it when so and so becomes dispensable, expendable, etc., etc., or when they find another alternative. And frankly, when they remove a prime minister, an elected government, they always have an option, because in that politics there are enough people willing to put their hand up and say, oh, you don't like him as your puppet, I'm quite happy to be a puppet. So, there is no shortage of those. So, that is the basic equation in Pakistan. So, this NAB has put almost all of Imran Khan's opposition in jail, and PTM leaders have also had the same problem. So, because this establishment now, which is also called militablishment, that is military establishment, they want Imran Khan to be in power, and they don't want Imran Khan distracted by anybody else. because Imran Khan is very vulnerable. He doesn't have a genuine majority of his own. He's there at the army's sufferance. He says what they expect him to say and what they want him to say. Even if he tries doing something, when he came to power, initially he tried to pull back from China a little bit because he read all these stories about countries becoming indebted to China on a terminal basis. So he tried to slow down CPEC and other processes, but then the army intervened. He immediately course corrected and over corrected on the other side. Now, as you know, he's appointed a retired lieutenant general, a corps commander of the army, to head CPEC, the famous or infamous Lieutenant General Asim Bajwa, who's also famous for his pizza empire worth tens of millions in America and elsewhere in the world. That is the Papa John's pizza. So let me not get digressed in that direction. I will tell you that Papa John's story some other time. Now, before the arrest of Maryam Nawaz's husband this morning and the Jalsa, as they say in Pakistan, the big rally in Karachi, see the pictures, huge rally. Nobody bothers wearing masks. This is a remarkable situation. Even in Thailand, a lot of people are not wearing masks in these public demonstrations, and they're really packed tightly close together. Nevertheless, before this, there was another big rally of about 50-60,000 people, which is a lot of people these days, given the fact that government tries its best to block you. That was in Gujranwala, which is a town in Punjab. Now, Gujranwala is in the very heartland of Nawaz Sharif's conservative Punjabi Muslim base. Gujranwala, remember, is in Punjab. Now, in Sindh, you challenge the army. Pakhtuns challenge the army. Baluchis traditionally challenge the army. But you never challenge the army in Punjab, in Pakistan. This time what Nawaz Sharif did was, he held that rally in Gujranwala, and remember, Gujranwala is also the heartland of the recruitment bowl of the Pakistani army. A bulk of them come from 3 or 4 districts in that area. So that is where the core of the Pakistani Punjabi army comes from, and that's where the ideology of Pakistan rests. So Nawaz Sharif held this rally there. He spoke on video from London, and he said things that people don't say in Pakistani politics. He said such things that if you go to Pakistani TV channels now, their websites, or if you just Google Nawaz Sharif's speech, you will find clips of full speech on every Pakistani TV channel. You will find in some places this is bleeped, or this goes blank, or this goes silent. Why is it so? He's not using any cuss words. He's not using any galis that you have to bleep. He is using the Pakistani media's equivalent of cuss words, which can bring horrible consequences upon you. And what are these? He names names of generals. He has said, and it doesn't often happen in Pakistan, he has named the serving general, serving chief, that is Qamar Ahmad Bajwa, repeatedly in his speech. And he said he's the one who stole the votes, he's the one who stole the election, he's the one who put the opposition in jail, he's the one who installed Imran Khan, he's the one who's destroyed India's democracy. Then he named the ISI chief, who he accused of the same things. Then he named General Faz, that is. Then he named General Asim Bajwa, and he said when he was Corps Commander Baluchistan, he sabotaged and brought down the elected government of Baluchistan. He should be tried for treason under Article 6 of the Constitution. So for Nawaz Sharif sitting in London to name the names of these generals, 2 of them are serving in the most powerful 2 positions in Pakistan, the Chief of Army Staff and the ISI Chief. What else do you want? And Asim Bajwa, who's their favorite, such a favorite that they've now put him in charge of CPEC. They had also made him special advisor to Prime Minister on his public affairs and media and public relations. He's now in panic, resigned from that. You know why? Because all these charges of his undisclosed wealth and Papa John's pizza chain, etc., all came out. It became too embarrassing for comfort. But the real power doesn't lie there. He was put in that job maybe to keep track of Imran Khan, so he doesn't say things that the army doesn't want him to say. they can put anybody else there, but he is really needed in CPEC because the army now is heavily invested in that. Because without China, the army has complications in Pakistan. The army has to deal with Afghanistan right now. The army has to worry about India. The army has to worry about internal politics. The army has to deal with the Taliban. The army has to deal with Baluchis because we've had several ambushes and suicide attacks on army convoys, on army soldiers in the last several days. So they really want China with them. So that is the overall picture. So before this, the Gujranwala rally. After that, a lot of people in the opposition, the Pakistani liberal commentariat thought that finally the moment of change has come. But it's not so easy in Pakistan. Things don't change so easily in Pakistan because Pakistan, in the past, people used to say it is the oldest beaten Ghisa Pita cliche about Pakistan. There are three A's: Army, Allah and America. Now, America has now disappeared from Pakistani power equations at this point. It may come back someday. At this point, it has disappeared. America has been replaced by China, and China is clear and present and next door. So this is a very different kind of alliance, and this is a time when America is completely at odds with China and Pakistan is completely dependent on China. So the clock has turned fully from 1971 when China became an ally or friend of America against the Soviet Union, with Pakistan as the power broker there, or Pakistan, as we say in India, as the nai, as the barber who puts a rishta together, boy's family, girl's family, etc., etc. Now that is over. That clock has turned fully. China is now an adversary of America, NATO. That's how you find the Quad coming up. But China has moved into this Pakistani power equation. China works through Pakistani army, and that is the big change in Pakistan, because that 3A has now been replaced by a plethora of C's. And even if I start counting, I will stop maybe at 4 or 5. So there is controversy, there is complications, there is confusion, there is an air of conspiracy everywhere, and obviously there is clutter. So how do you declutter this? Now I can only do it by telling you about some problems on the ground. So who are the people who are coming out? The fact is that these opposition rallies are getting a lot of support. A lot of people are coming out. Why are they coming out? They are not coming out because, and this is what I read in Pakistani media and people who know Pakistan, and I have spoken with several of them now today, these people have not such a faith in the opposition. They know opposition leaders to be deeply corrupt. They are not doodh ka dhula hua. But right now they are hurting, and because they are hurting, first of all they are hurting because of joblessness and because of price rise. So officially Pakistan's consumer price index is rising at about 9%. It may be a percentage point lower than last year, but in reality things that lower middle classes, the poor buy wheat, sugar, they have really shot up. Wheat flour in Pakistan now is about 60-62 rupees a kilo, Pakistani rupees. So even if you convert that into Indian rupee, it's about 30 plus rupees a kilo. It's very not branded atta, it's just normal atta. It is quite expensive, and remember, Pakistani rupee may be half the value of Indian rupee to the dollar, but nobody gets paid in dollar in Pakistan. People still get paid in their rupees. So it's a lot of money. Sugar is anything between 90 rupees to 100 rupees a kilo. Petrol, diesel, etc. prices have been raised. They were raised by 27 to 66% across products in the middle of this year. And at this point, IMF has stepped back. They withheld the latest tranche of their $6 billion restructuring for Pakistan, because Pakistan has not met many of IMF conditions. Those conditions mean that by February next year, Pakistan has to raise fuel prices, electricity prices, collect more taxes, and cut many subsidies. And it's very difficult to see how Imran Khan will be able to put that much more burden on his population, because if he does, with this level of public protest building up already, the opposition's plan right now is, and I read the article that Najam Sethi has written in the Friday Times, and I'm sharing some of these articles and some of these video clips with you. He said, everybody says that opposition will now carry on with these jalsas, these public protests for 2 months. After that, they will all congregate in Islamabad and lay dharna around National Parliament and the capital complex. Exactly what Imran Khan had done to Nawaz Sharif, and Imran Khan had a very healthy majority. But majorities don't matter in Pakistan. The army wanted Imran Khan to do this. So that leads to conspiracy theories. That could Nawaz Sharif be doing all this sitting in London unless he has some friends in the army or some friends among the powers that be who are saying, boss, we are now fed up of this guy Imran Khan, a liability ho gaya, isko nikalo. Because Imran Khan has made a bunch of errors, and I will tell you what are those errors. Besides the price rise and besides mishandling the economy, that is the first one, economy and prices. One, he made an unthinking but decisive and total tilt towards Erdogan. He thought, wo Erdogan, main chota Erdogan, right? And he, because a lot of Pakistani leaders have this fantasy. Musharraf also used to talk about Ataturk. Now Erdogan is no Ataturk, and Imran Khan, obviously he is not intellectually so well endowed, and it doesn't look like he listens to many advisors, or everybody says Zindabad to whatever he says. They forgot that Erdogan in many ways is caught in a political battle with Sunni Muslim countries who've been Pakistan's closest allies and money bags, that is Saudi Arabia, UAE, etc., etc. So by joining hands with him, Begani ki Shadi mein Abdullah Dewana, Imran Khan joined in there just because Erdogan made a few statements against India on Kashmir. So he irritated the Arab world. The army doesn't like that, and that has had terrible consequences for Pakistan, because push comes to the shove, I don't know what Erdogan can do for him. He can't send him fuel, he can't give him crude oil bailouts, he can't give him cash, and in fact, if anything, Saudis are now demanding their money back, which means the dependence on China increases more and more. The third mistake he made, first he tried to push back China, and then now he's become overly reliant on China. So while his people try and say that, oh, Pakistan's never been in a better situation internationally, frankly, today Pakistan has no friend in the world except China and Turkey, such as it is, because Turkey is caught up in problems and ambitions of its own. You know what's happening between Azerbaijan, Armenia, what's happening between Turkey and Greece, because that Erdogan also has an oversized ego. So Imran Khan became a kind of Sancho Panza to Erdogan, and that's what his country is paying for. And finally, when Imran Khan came to power, he kept on saying there is no democracy, there is no democracy. You can find 20 interviews of him saying that if I'm in power, no ISI chief can do anything, no army chief can anything, I will appoint the army chief, I will appoint the ISI chief. Everybody knows that is not the case. So if anything, even the powers that Nawaz Sharif had taken, grabbed legitimately because he was the elected leader, even those Imran Khan has now given away to the army. So the mistake Imran Khan made, I think the biggest mistake for himself, and will cost him his job at some point, might cost him his job at some time, is that when he came to power, he should have strengthened democracy and institutions of democracy. Because knowing that one day the army will get fed up of him and they will go after him, he would have needed those institutions. But he did not do that. On the other hand, he went after all those institutions. Even journalists were kidnapped, they disappeared. Terrible things have happened in Pakistan. All institutions were destroyed, judges were blackmailed, judges were raided, judges were also arraigned by NAB in fake cases, any judge you didn't like. So he destroyed all institutions, tried to destroy all his opposition, sent them to jail. So instead of making it an army free democracy or an army mukt Pakistan, not the country needs the army for all its other purposes, not for running its government. So instead of making it an army mukt Pakistan politics, let me say, he tried to make it an opposition mukt and democracy mukt army Pakistan politics, and the consequence of that is now he's back at the mercy of the army. So all these opposition leaders are attacking not the army. They are very clever not to attack the institution of the army. They are attacking Qamar Ahmad Bajwa. So that is a kind of escape route even for the army as an institution. That we are blaming the guy, you are very nice guys as an institution, you are needed to protect India. And they are using all the things that Imran Khan would have used when they were in power. For example, it's a very interesting exchange. Imran Khan said that Maryam Nawaz, she may be a nani, she's a grandmother, she has 2 grandchildren. She's 46, but she has 2 grandchildren. She got married at 18. She may be a nani, but मेरे लिए वो बच्ची है. To which Maryam Nawaz then responded by saying, मैं नानी हूँ and nani is mother's mother, etc. Usual rhetoric. And then she said that when we speak anything, then Imran Khan says कि मोदी की ज़ुबान बोल रहे हैं. और फिर वो कहती है, then she says, उनको देखिए वो पहले मोदी की कामयाबी की दुआएं देते हैं इमरान खान. उसने कहा था कि इट विल बी बेटर फॉर पाकिस्तान इफ मोदी विंस. पहले मोदी की कामयाबी की दुआएं देते हैं, उसके बाद मोदी को मिलने के लिए मरे जा रहे हैं. इनफैक्ट शी सेज पहले मोदी को के जीतने की दुआएं करो तुम, फिर मोदी को मिलने के लिए मरे जाओ तुम, फिर रातों रात ऑर्डिनेंस निकाल के कुलभूषण यादव की जान बचाओ तुम, फिर गवर्नमेंट के खर्चे पे कुलभूषण यादव के लिए वकील लाओ तुम, फिर इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस में केस हारो तुम, फिर भारत को प्लेट पे रख के ऑन ए प्लेटर कश्मीर दो तुम. सो यू गिव कश्मीर ऑन इंडिया टू पाकिस्तान, यू पास एन ओवरनाइट ऑर्डिनेंस टू सेव कुलभूषण यादव, you lose a case at ICJ, you are dying to meet Modi and you accuse us of being the voice of Modi. So this is how this is now building up. This is becoming quite nasty, and once again I told you Pakistan is also a conspiracy capital. A lot of people think that this could not be happening without some signal from the powers that be. I have no evidence, and I know Pakistan for long enough to know that anytime such a thing happens, conspiracy theories come up. So I will not go with any of that. All I can tell you is what's happening on the ground.